I'm Emily Sigelski, Senior Editor at Worth. And during this session, we're discussing how to advance your career through self-advocating. Only 13% of women have sponsors who have opened doors and teach them the critical skills needed to climb the corporate ladder, meaning most employees, especially women and people of color, never advance as far as they could. In this session, we will be discussing how to raise your visibility, maximize opportunities, and open doors in your career through self-advocating. Joining me today are three fabulous women. We have Ali Young, founder and CEO of The Forum, Asha Kazazian, Director of Global Real Estate at Sherman & Sterling, and Jamie Sears, Social Impact and Corporate Responsibility Leader at UBS. Thank you all for joining us. It's so great to have you ladies with us today. I'd like to start with each of y'all giving a bit of background on what you do and why this topic is so important to you. Ali, you want to start?
Yes, I will happily start. So hi, everybody. I'm Ali Young, and I'm the CEO and founder of The Forum. So I have 20 years in tech, and I sat at my computer 3 years ago and typed "Me Too" into Facebook, like far too many of us that are sitting here. And the next day decided to create my company, The Forum, which helps move women into leadership roles. And so really what I care about is having diverse organizations and seeing women and diverse people leading within corporations and government and within our communities. And I truly think that's how we'll have like an amazing, kinder, more prosperous world. And one of the things that I have realized along this path of creating The Forum is that self-advocacy is one of the keys that actually moves people up the ladder. And of course, that's a very obvious one, but it's hard to teach and it's hard for people to understand how to do that authentically. And so it's like a core pillar of what we do and a core activity that helps drive advancement for women.
That's great. Arsha, how about you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Just wanted to say thank you for having me on the panel. I'm very excited about being part of this summit. Just a little bit about me. I have about 20 plus years experience in architecture, construction, real estate. I would say about first half of my career was as an entrepreneur. I owned and operated a design and delivery firm serving a whole host of multinational clients around the globe. And then the second part of my career, I focused on working with much larger organizations, leading teams anywhere from 30 members to about 180. My current role now at Sherman & Sterling is where I'm responsible for about 1 million square feet, a 1 million square foot portfolio, spanning 23 offices and 5 continents. I am one of few female members of the leadership team. And as such, it's been a pet project of mine to continue to advocate for women through the ranks, regardless of their position, and help to promote, advocate, include, and assist in getting those individuals who aspire to do great things in the world. And so wherever I can add value in my organization and beyond is part of my new commitments. Thank you.
That's great. How about you, Jamie?
Everyone. So I have a great job at UBS. I lead the Community Affairs and Corporate Responsibility area for the bank in the Americas. So my colleagues and I are driving social impact, and we do that across a region of 20,000 plus colleagues. We have strategic initiatives that focus on education and entrepreneurship. We also tap into the skills and talents of our colleagues, our employees, have a very robust employee engagement platform and local giving portfolio of work. So I am a social impact leader that's been, in financial services now for, more than 12 years. And I think this topic is very important to me. It's been important throughout my, journey navigating through working, in financial services and in other, industries before this. But I think that, representation has taken on a whole new meaning for many of us over the past, particularly in the past few years for me. And so I think that I've been, trying to learn lessons about what advocating for myself looks like and sharing what I have learned along the way with others, and wanting really to see, it's been reflected in what both Ali and Asha shared, but just, really bringing the full diversity of backgrounds and experiences to power everything forward. And so I think these are really important conversations for us, not only for ourselves, but for others who are, looking to women like the ones here to figure out how they can do this.
Definitely. And I feel like, the idea of self-advocating, especially as a woman, it seems a lot harder for us than it does for men. I think a lot of that comes down between the whole idea of bragging versus self-advocating. And we're maybe not as comfortable with it. We're not cheering on ourselves after every, phone call that goes well. So Ali, I'd love to kind of hear your take on why it seems to be harder for women than it does seem to be for men.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it seems to be it is ingrained in us to really try to be not boastful and to be humble. And culturally, there's lots of women from various cultures that it could be incrementally harder, because really being humble is a core value and tenet. But at the same time, truly, there is more blowback for women if we self-advocate in a way that makes us seem boastful or that we're too ambitious. I mean, there's lots of studies and even content that's out there now, like with Kamala Harris, is she too ambitious? And to me, a lot of that has to do with self-advocating. Not that she's not doing well, she's amazing, but that there can be blowback based on perception. And so I do think that it can be a little bit of a slippery slope, but it doesn't mean that it's not worth it. It's absolutely worth it. And it's absolutely a skill that we have to learn. And to your point at the beginning about the data where only 13% of women have sponsors, if you don't have that sponsor, you have to self-advocate. It doesn't matter if there's potential blowback. It's a skill, an activity that we absolutely have to learn, because we don't have those people tapping us on the shoulder to say, we want you for this next executive position, or you're ready to move up the ladder to be a first-time manager. So we have to figure out ways in which to navigate. And it's not something that's taught, but it is something that can be learned.
Now, Jamie, I know when we talked last week, you had mentioned that you've never had a sponsor per se, but you have had some mentors. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you've been able to climb the corporate ladder without having a sponsor, at your behest.
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably many of us have been fortunate to have, mentors of, people from all levels of an organization. And now you can have access to mentors via podcasts and books and things like that. So I definitely take advantage of those things. So I do think that sponsorship has been talked about for a while, but it's the next frontier. And when I think about what are the things that are helpful if you don't have a sponsor, but you desire to grow your career, and I think you were using the climbing the corporate ladder. I feel like some of the things that have been helpful to me, but are things that I've learned from many, many people and many other women in terms of people who've had the kind of careers that I want. I think it starts in some ways, it starts with you. It starts with you being really excellent at what you do. And I think that's just, kind of a baseline requirement. But the other thing that I think is, which I learned as kind of the dirty little secret is, it's not really about meritocracy. I think from a skill standpoint, managing perception, it's something that I literally learned last year, can be equally as important. People may not know who you are. They may not know what you do. I feel like I have somewhat unique role in my company. So there are a lot of people who might not be familiar. And even if they know those two things about you, they may not, really fully appreciate the value of what you can contribute. So I think it's important to have self-awareness about perception and think as well, about how you want to be perceived. And so that is very practical, but I think it's important because it took me a really long time to learn that it's actually not all about the work. But I think, like I started off with, I think being excellent at what you do is just basic requirement. And I guess the other thing, which is related to mentors and the network, is just relationships and building solid relationships, honestly, with almost every single person that you work with. It doesn't mean that you're gonna probably gravitate toward people that you have more of an affinity with, but that doesn't mean you can't have, good working relationships. And you never know when those sort of come back around and end up really influencing a path that you want to be on, regardless of where people are in a big company. And I think these are like really simple things, but the things that we have within our control are trying to be excellent at what we do, being intentional about how we interact with people, building real relationships, thinking about the relationships that you want to build and spending a little time on that. I think those are things that there's many things I'm trying to say that I think we can do. And that's part of self-advocacy. And of course, when you can do those things well, you can bring other people along with you. And while you may kind of be your first, strongest self-advocate, some of this allows you to have confidence and to enlist others to support you, even if it's not going to be someone that handpicks you for an opportunity. That doesn't necessarily have to be the path for everyone either. So I think there's plenty of room and opportunity to be able to do all kinds of things for yourself and with mentors, and then maybe the sponsorship opportunity will be there.
Yeah, and I want to circle back to something you just mentioned about perception. I think there's lots of tips and tricks that we have read about and that we're going to continue to talk about self-advocating. But Arsha, I know you had mentioned some interesting tips and tricks about kind of being the only woman in the room and how you're perceived. I'd love for you to kind of give us a bit about that.
Sure. It's a big question, and there's a lot that is packed into it. If you don't mind, I just want to pick up on something Jamie said. There's a couple words in there. One is kind of like knowing thyself, I think, is very important. So to self-advocate, you have to understand what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, where your comfort zone is, and kind of figure out how to put boundaries around it. So then you can then kind of gauge and calibrate the steps you take that maybe aren't second nature to you in environments that are not comfortable or familiar yet. And that's something that you can do very methodically. The other thing is the word relationship. And people always tell us, well, you have to develop these relationships. Well, how the heck do you develop relationships? Some people are just naturally born to, just they're incredibly social, they're extroverted, they're naturally curious. And other folks are just really good at what they do. And if you've only practiced doing what you're really good at, and it doesn't include sort of building relationships, then you have to figure out, like, how do I unpack that word? And I think a lot of it has to do with figuring out how do you build trust. And there's all these steps you have to take to building trust. It's like kind of sales 101. You have to engage the consumer and figure out, like, what's the hook. And the hook really is the most sincere part of who you are, which is figuring out all the different aspects of you that you want others to know about in a sincere way, and just to write it down. And maybe it's a list of 5 things. And then from there, whatever environment you're in, it could be a social environment, outside of work, it could be in the workplace in an organization that's 15 or 15,000, then you can kind of assess and audit the environment and figure out how to navigate that terrain. So when you're in the trenches, if you kind of, list those out and stay close to what your story is, regardless of the company, the project, the boss, the what have you, you're always staying true to who you are, and you're figuring out how to exercise your voice in a sincere manner. And that's something that I think is it's really vital to harnessing your own power and individuality. And then you take pride in being who you are, because not everyone has a list of accomplishments that they can recite or kind of sell to others to advocate for them or to sponsor them yet. But at least that's the starting point.
Definitely.
Emily, can I pick up on one thing too?
Yeah, of course.
Jamie, you also said, you know, like meritocracy is not real or something like that. And it's so true. Like, it's not. And like everybody here, all the participants listening, I think it's really important to know that. So if you believe the meritocracy is true and that you will truly only advance in your career based on your work, you will literally never go as far as you deserve.
Very true.
There's a whole group of people that aren't going to know your work because they may not, like, you know, you may not be connecting with them, or you may not have as strong of relationships with them. So there are these other things like building those relationships or really understanding what your strengths are and connecting that with your work. If it's unconnected to your work and you just rely on the work, you will literally not go as far as some other guy who's doing a pretty good job, but is like significantly better versed in those things. Like that guy is going to get your job. Not your job today, your next job, your next promotion.
Allie, what are some tips and tricks for someone who wants to put themselves out there, find mentors, network, but maybe is an introvert? Like they're somebody who's used to just in their head deep in their work and maybe aren't as comfortable talking to people like out of the blue. What are some tips and tricks for them?
So I don't think we need to do a lot of networking. I think when we think of networking, we think of networking events, and like it's the events that I don't think we need to do all the time or like very often. You could get significantly farther and have more authentic, true relationships if you just connect with somebody one-to-one. So I always say it's like this, a little smaller scale, but you know what I mean? It's just like one-to-one. It's having a conversation with someone. And also a lot of times we get stuck thinking about expanding our network because we think about like that guy in the office or like that super senior person that we really think we should know. You don't have to reach far like that to network. Build a group of people that are your peers. And by the way, they grow with you over time and become significantly more influential over time. But you don't need some guy in the corner office to open the door for you. There's actually many, many people that open doors. But we do need to network. So I always say my advice is if your career is like going swimmingly well, you love your job, you're super happy, network one-to-one. Just meet one new person a week, spend 20 minutes with them. Ask them how you could support them. And when you support them in their career, they will want to connect and help support yours. If you want to pivot, if you want that promotion, if you want something else, it's 3 to 4 times a week. But again, it really does need to be authentic. Find people that you like, find people that you're interested in, and just try to talk to them one-to-one and take the pressure off of the conversation.
I have a really great question from the audience, so I'm going to relay that, and whoever wants to take this can. But how do you advise Black women on how to navigate race and gender in the workplace?
That's such a big one. It's such an important one, but it's such a big one. I mean, there's multiple challenges in the workplace, so no one person can like navigate or solve this on her own. There are systems in place within organizations that need to change, and truly companies need to invest. We need to see it to be it. Like we need to invest in Black leaders throughout organizations, in executive roles, on the board, and like across departments. I definitely think companies should be investing in their teams and every single person within their company to make sure that there are like anti-racist trainings and whatnot, so that as you are connecting within an organization and growing and navigating, like it's a good place to navigate. So I think the first thing for any individual as they go into an organization is understanding, is this, or you like assess an organization, is this the right organization for me? Like, are these the right people? And I think we spend a lot of time with people who may not see or perceive our value. And I think we spend far too much time hoping they'll change. And I think, like, if someone does not see your value, like, you go out there, network like crazy 3 to 4 times a week, like I said before, and to find, like, interview people to find the people that truly see your value and your potential. And that's when, like, it will, like, your entire career can start shifting and you can start rising. But I would really assess the people as well as the culture of an organization.
Can I, since I'm in the trenches, can I provide an example?
Please do.
Real time. So I think it's hard. Well, there's 2 scenarios, right? There's the job that you don't have yet, you're looking for, and then there's the job that you've been in, and you could be figuring out if you want to stay in, given post-COVID, what the new normal will look like, which none of us know yet. I think it's people, appreciating our value, but it's also you assessing the values of the company and their mission. And if they don't align with your values, then you have to make a conscious decision that you're going to still pursue it for one reason or another, and supplement or figure out how to influence, a trajectory that maybe is not in line with what, and one of those things is support as a minority in the organization. So now those in the job, there are a lot of challenges, and I think regardless of the size, I think everyone has been primed now to have the conversation around, what the heck are we doing to address this issue? I think the gender lens has been applied, not necessarily utilized the way it could be, but it's there. So as a Black woman coming to me and saying, listen, I want to talk, what do you think we could do? Well, I would tell her, and this happened at my firm, there are several women-run organizations now that have signed up to support the firm. We called the head of diversity and inclusion. We had a conversation. We said, we want to talk about recruiting. We're leaders in this space. You have to have some courage, and you have to be able to stick your neck out there, and you have to force the conversation, and you got to show up. You got to show up, and you have to speak up. And the best way to do it as a minority is to at least, create a united front and a community with women, regardless of their color, and start there. So that would be something that I would recommend.
Thank you. Another question from the audience. Someone was at a company where women were not interested in mentoring. How do we change that culture?
I think that if people are, thinking about mentorship, a traditional model where there's people that are more experienced that are making time to meet with people who are, more junior, let's say, I feel like we're so far beyond that as just the only way that mentorship can happen. And so I guess I'm just reading into, maybe the question was, I worked at a place where maybe more senior women weren't interested really in kind of taking more junior people under the wing. I don't know. But I think that this is like a system design thing. There's a number of ways you can think about mentorship, and I would maybe just think about challenging for yourself what that means. So if you find yourself in a place and there's very few senior leaders who are women, and they seem to be, busy, etc., and it's not happening, like, I think that there's other ways that you can get insights and expertise that you might not have, thought partners. I have benefited a lot from peer mentors, probably the most. Just something about being a part of a community and connecting, and, frankly, being able to be more honest about things that I'm sort of going through. We all have different experiences. I don't know that it's always about years of, particular expertise, unless that is the thing that you're looking for. But if you're in a place where that isn't established in terms of the culture, I think you could also kind of expand your own thinking. And then, you know, like others are saying, there's ways that you could speak up and connect with, depending on the size of the company, people who are working in areas that can help develop these kinds of opportunities and make it easy for people who, if in fact this was about, you know, senior women in a company, I mean, they have their own challenges and struggles with time and other demands. And so it also could be about that. So I am usually giving people the benefit of the doubt and thinking that if something is set in place that makes it easier to do, that might be a way to, you know, help the system be better. But I always sort of start individually. Maybe there's something that could be done that doesn't have to do with that old model that we grew up with.
That makes a lot of sense. We are running out of time, so I want to close with one last question. And we've had a lot of great questions and responses from the audience, so thank you so much, everyone who's attending and listening right now. But a final question, Ali, maybe you want to take this first, and if Arsha and Jamie want to chime in, please feel free. But what steps do you think we can collectively make to power forward in 2021?
I guess the big one, if I were to sum it up, is to not just think about your job, but think about your career. Your job is for someone else. That's like, it's tasks and it's to-do lists, and it also has to do with meritocracy. If you just focus on your job, again, you'll just never get as far as you deserve. But if you take time out, it does not have to be a lot, but some time out and invest in your career. And that means investing in relationships. It means really understanding how to authentically self-advocate. It means, you know, identifying what you're really great at and sharing it with other people and the things that you're passionate about, so that you get more work that's based on the things you're great at and passionate about. Like, that's the stuff that will power you forward. And also it will give you clarity, because, you know, we obviously want to power forward. My whole company and everything I do is about powering women forward, but it's a really complicated time to talk about powering forward. Like, I'm moving, I have 2 children. It's great. It's nuts right now for so many people and for so many different reasons. But really just making sure you don't fall, like you don't put yourself last. And your career, and having a North Star for how do you forward your career forward, not just the job. So I would say take out 20% or like 10% of your work, get a project to good enough, and then really like shift gears and start thinking about your career. And that will truly start paying off in 2021.
Amazing. Thank you, Ali.
Oh, no, go ahead, Jamie.
Okay. I'm going to take your advice, Ali. You know, you know, gosh, thinking about 2021 is exciting. I think to be able to collectively move forward together, power forward, as you said, I think that this time that we're living in has shown us like how inextricably linked we all are. And I think that's like a really important lesson to remember as we move forward. You know, I think we are seeing just a lot of inequities in our society and the long overdue call for racial justice. And I feel like you know, I think we are going to need to stay united as we move forward and ensure that we are creating more opportunities for others. I think each of us has you know, the ability to take that action, and I feel like that's, you know, where the power is really going to lie. So a little bit different from career, but I think there's, you know, I'm very hopeful for 2021, and just don't want to, you know, lose some of the lessons that we've learned through this time.
Definitely. Arsha?
So the phrase I've been using lately has been to exercise extreme empathy. I know people have been talking about it quite often in terms of how to be a successful leader and what have you, and it's absolutely essential to that. I think modern day leadership styles. I think that to power forward, particularly in these really uncertain, challenging, but exciting times nonetheless, I think the digital environment is going to be an opportunity if women can tap into it beyond what is part of their day to day, to really leverage the community building aspect and to show up. That whole thing about showing up, it's huge, and showing up can just mean to listen, take notes, learn, contribute ideas, ask really insightful questions, educate yourself above and beyond things that you normally spend time thinking about or reading. Educate yourself. Because I think we all have in our DNA the ability to really be versions of ourselves that we never recognized. And for some reason, I think this remote work model can actually assist women right now, and those underserved members of the world in ways that we never imagined. So I would say show up, support, include.
I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, so much. This has been a fantastic panel. Everyone show up.
Show up for each other.
Yeah.
That's great.